there, welcome to the Retro Desk. This is Matt Heffernan, and today we have a very special thing for you. It's not the Commander X16, although that's still always very special. I've got an actual real retro computer to show you today. You've probably seen one before. I used one about 30 years ago for an interesting application that I will talk about later, but without further ado, here it is. A Macintosh Special Edition SE. Now, this is a beautiful, maybe a little dirty computer, but beautiful nonetheless. These were made between 1987 and 1990, and they were sort of the second generation or so of Macs. They actually started becoming useful computers around this time. And I used a computer very much like this one. In fact, this one, like that one, has a built-in hard drive right here and a floppy drive. These could be equipped with dual floppies and no hard drive, if that's how you wanted to roll. But I used one back in my college days. We're talking around 1995, as a arcade attendant, and I had to fill out information in a spreadsheet that would go in here, just sort of to log different things that were going on, such as refunds that had to be done for the change machine, or just a few bookkeeping items. It ran Microsoft Excel, and of course it had an old version of the Mac operating system, which at this point we'd be talking about when I was using it, the current versions would have been like System 7 or 8. But this, of course, was already an obsolete computer pretty much, but a few of them were still sticking around doing sort of weird odd jobs like this. This one was picked up at a garage sale, and it was an extremely good price, only $40, and it came with the original mouse and keyboard and a power cable, so everything you need, and plus another little extra thing that I will show you soon. Even though I have everything here, I don't want to just power it up right away, although my understanding is that this still works. There is a BARTA battery on the motherboard of this, and I want to make double sure that that hasn't just exploded all over the place inside. Hopefully it hasn't. This generation of Mac, they used very high quality components still. They weren't those bad old capacitors from the early 90s yet. They were still not cheaping out on that. So let's crack this puppy open, shall we? Of course, to do that, I am going to need a Torx T15 screwdriver with a nice long shaft so that I can get into the back of this guy. So if we turn this around, you can see it has our nice carrying handle with a couple of Torx screws buried deep inside. So I'm going to get those out of there. All right. Well, we're going to have to tackle this another time, I think, because this screwdriver is not quite skinny enough to fit all the way in there. Let me see if I got something else. So I got this T15, which at least is skinny on this end, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to really turn that. Yeah. So I'm not going to be able to do that. So to Amazon I shall go to find a screwdriver that I'll be able to get in there with. Okay, now we've got the right tool. Whoa, there, that'll do it. All right, so let's get these screws that are way up in there. There we go. Got that little guy out. All right. We got our magnetic screw dish in there, so we're all good. Let's get some of that schmutz out of there. All right. There we go. And another screw. I mean, it looks pretty clean. I don't think this thing's ever been cracked open. All right. I'll get these guys out of here. And this screw. I mean, it looks like it maybe has a little wear from being just more external. So I don't think these have been out either. All right, so that's it, just 4 screws. And now we need to be able to get the case off. Let's see, is it gonna come off without any extra persuasion? I do have a putty knife here to kind of help jimmy it open a little bit. Getting there. Let's try a little loosening on this side. There we go. It's coming. There we go. All right. It's free. There we go. All right. Now, of course, always with something with a CRT, we need to be extra careful, although this guy has not been plugged in for a really long time. But that's the real danger zone right there. That little suction cup, that's going to be really the source of all the charge. So we don't want to get in there and mess with that. But let's get this off of here. All right. Look, this looks pretty darn clean inside. I mean, I don't think this guy has had a whole lot of running time. Right? I mean, this is sparkling on the inside. Dingy on the outside, sparkling on the inside. All right, so we've got our little RF shield, a little dead fly in there. Not too bad. All right, let's take a look at all this business in here. So we've got the hard drive. It's, of course, a SCSI hard drive. Who knows how how good of a shape this hard drive is in. I mean, it's a little dusty on the inside, but I don't see any damage. Looking at the power supply, the PCB for that looks fine. These caps look rock solid. Even the fan, it barely has any dust on it. So now the main thing is the motherboard. The motherboard is down here on the bottom. So let's get this here. Underside looks just, again, sparkling clean. Right, so those clips are fine. We've got the floppy. Took off the floppy cable. Let's get the hard drive SCSI cable off there. Everything's coming off real nice. Not having to force anything. And now the power cable at the bottom. There we go. Okay. So that's it. That should be all that's holding the motherboard in. So let's set this guy back down here. And let's bring it free, shall we? Ooh, all right, anything else holding it in? I don't think so. There we go. Okay. Now we're talking. All right, so there's just this little guy here, and he is good. This is the little power LED. All right, so there it is. There's our motherboard, and there's the Varta battery. The Varta battery is looking very clean. All right, so let's see if there is anything coming out of that. We will set this on our Handy Commander X16 mouse pad. And my extra cheap multimeter. And we will see what we're dealing with here. Yeah, like half a volt. Or not even half a volt. It is just completely dead. A tenth of a volt. That's about all we're getting on there. So we're good to just go ahead and cut that right out. We could replace it at some point with a different battery, but that's that's not going to be necessary. But yeah, I'm going to say after 35 years, if this hasn't leaked yet, they're good. So let's see. Maybe something on the silk screen can tell us a little more about how old we are. So again, we have silk screen on there, 1986. So this is the original version of the board. Here, the 68,000 on here. Looks like it's got a date of 1987, 39th week of 1987. So it's yeah, this is going to be a pretty early Mac SE. So this was probably like ready to ship like Christmas of 1987. All right, so let's just get this cleaned up a bit. All right, so just dusting off the tops of these guys. Just set some of these dust bunnies free. You can see that the memory is fully populated. So like we see on the back of the case, this has a 1 megabyte RAM. I think it might be upgradable to more, but my understanding is that some of these resistors need to be replaced to do that. Here it even says on the silk screen, RAM size 256K, bit 1 row. Yeah, so I don't know, that might need something different in there if you're going to have these little sims that are bigger than 256K each. But we don't have here any sort of expansions. This was, of course, the main expansion bus right here. Some folks had an adapter that could emulate, say, either an Apple II or Apple 2GS or even an IBM PC. That would have been quite the setup to have on there. Otherwise, we got all the round chips are on there. They are socketed. Everything looks to be seated nicely. So I think we're good to go. So we're going to put that right back in. So we got to put the little LED guy back in there. And match up with our slots. There we go. All right. Those clips are back into place. All right. We're going to put our floppy cable back in. And we're going to put our SCSI cable back in. These hard drives are probably not so good. They're very old. But what's really cool is that SCSI is still a widely used standard. And if I wanted to make a new PCB that would take SCSI and perhaps convert it to a new storage option like SD, then I could create something like that and have our friends at PCBWay be able to create that. So they can create brand new PCBs, and they are nice quality, just like the ones that Apple had here back in the day, but are going to be able to provide us some more convenience for being able to enjoy this in the modern times. But even beyond that, if I had other pieces of this that need to be fixed or replaced, like maybe a part of the case, they could 3D print that for me. If I needed some sheet metal fabrication, they could do that too if some of this stuff got bent out of shape. All of that is ready for you right now at a one-stop prototyping shop at PCBWay.com. So go visit them. They're kind enough to be our sponsor, and they are ready to help make your dream a reality. So we will hope and pray that this old SCSI drive is still in good shape. And now we'll get power cable back into place. All right, Floppy's fully seated. SCSI's fully seated. Power's fully seated. Okay, so we've got it back to being a complete circuit. One thing to look at over here, and we might have to fiddle with, are some of these adjustments here. So we've got little adjustments here for focus, cutoff, height, in case the picture isn't quite what we're hoping for. So before we put that case back on, we're going to go ahead and power this puppy up. We've got our original power cable here. That's going to go in the back. All right, that's in there. And we're going to smoke test it. Let's see. Oh, there, the hard drive is spinning up. Oh, what are we going to see? What are we going to see? All right, I see the phosphors are starting to light up. No, we do not have a floppy disk in there. But can we boot off the hard drive? I see the activity on there. Come on, tell me you can boot up without the floppy. Or maybe that's not the hard drive spinning up. Maybe that's just the power supply. All right, so we are not going to be able to boot up without some sort of software to run on there. So we're going to need to go back to the internet and find that. But we can see that the picture still looks okay and everything. It's we don't have the mouse hooked up or anything, so let's try powering it down. All right, that fan is definitely spinning, doing its thing. Here's our original keyboard. It looks to be in pretty good shape, and the original mouse also in pristine shape. I did take a look at the ball inside. It looked like it had either been thoroughly cleaned previously since the last use, or it has barely been used at all. So I really think this this old beast never saw much action. So we're going to power it up one more time with the mouse hooked up. So we'll see if it's at least able to recognize the mouse. Can't tell if that hard drive is trying to do anything or not. So yeah, it just starts that high. But look, the mouse is working. But yeah, so we're not able to boot off the hard drive. So we're gonna have to try to figure that out. But I mean, the picture looks good. I don't think I need to adjust this picture at all. But I am gonna need a floppy drive, or get a floppy disk to put in this drive, And hopefully this drive is still working good enough to do it. Otherwise, we're going to need a replacement for that SCSI hard drive, which we're going to need one way or the other anyway. But that's it. All right, back to the internet. Okay, so we know pretty much what we're dealing with here. It looks like the motherboard, the video system, and all that seem to be in perfectly fine shape. One thing we definitely know is broken is this guy right here, the SCSI hard drive. So we're going to be getting rid of that. I've already ordered a SCSI to SD converter, so I'll be able to take a micro SD card. I'll be able to take something like this. This is an 8 gig card. This is more than big enough to be the hard drive of a Mac from this generation. In fact, I don't think we'll even be able to format the whole thing on there. But I'll be able to start with this and put it in the SCSI to SD, and then this 50-pin ribbon cable will go right into that, as will the Molex power supply and then this guy, and we'll have the world's largest Mac SE hard drive. So let's take this out. This is going to go off to the great hard drive pasture in the sky. So this time we're going to leave, we're going to take the SCSI cable completely out. We're going to take it out of the hard drive and out of the motherboard. Let's get it out of the motherboard again first. We know that came out pretty easy last time. And we're going to save this because I don't have a whole bunch of SCSI cables just laying around. I don't think this has been out of there since since it was in the factory. Let's see, I might have to unscrew this puppy out of here, and then that'll maybe make it a bit easier to get the cabling pulled out. This is going to take an actual Phillips head screwdriver. How about that? So we've got screws here, and we've got screws there, and now we've got these guys holding it up. Yeah, we need to just get that whole thing out of there. So this will take one of these guys. And another one. Good thing I got the one that's a foot long. Yeah, it makes this quite a bit easier. Before we get too carried away, let's just go ahead and take the motherboard right out. Alright, so we're going to set our beautiful motherboard aside. We're going to do a little cleanup on this here in a minute. And we're going to take the power out of there. Is that going to come out easy? No. So we need to finish getting this whole drive assembly out. So what we have are some Phillips screws that are right over here. I'm going to need a longer screwdriver for that. All right, let's try this Frankenstein hose beast. There we go. All right, there's a nice little screw with a little toothy washer on there. Hope you're not too scared by that technical jargon of toothy washer. All right, it's coming free. There we go. There's the other guy. Now, the hard drive. Should come right out. All right, now, there we go. SCSI cable, looking good. Perfectly able to keep doing its SCSI thing. We're gonna put that away till our replacement comes in. And now here, the Molex. So I think to really get that out, gonna have to remove it from the tray here. So I think these little screws, I'm probably not going to really need these anymore, but I will save them just in case I need them for mounting the SCSI to SD somehow. I think it's supposed to mount in something similar to this, because it is sized to fit in a 3.5-inch drive bay like this. So we'll see. One last screw. That's what she said. And Oh, all right. So we're going to save. All right. So the little LED here is mounted to this. So hopefully we'll be able to have a similar connection on the SCSI to SD and be able to drive this LED with it as well. Okay, there we go. Okay. Of course, it is all tangled up in the drive, but now it's free. Drive can come out. So I mean, he looks really clean. You know, he doesn't even need to be washed. So we'll put it over here. And now we'll get this Molex power cable out of here, because we will be using that for SCSI to SD. And now here it is. So let's take maybe a little closer look at this hard drive. Model AXX. I know this wasn't a super huge hard drive. Let's see, here's our date on there. 15 August 1987. So yeah, mini scribe. That's the big chip on there. Do not rotate interrupter. No problem. So yeah, whoever mini scribe was, they made some very heavy hard drives in the 80s. So they did not last the test of time, unfortunately. Maybe they got bought out by Seagate or Western Digital or somebody like that, but I don't think they're with us anymore as an independent company. So this, I don't know. Anybody wants this? Put a comment down there, and I'll send it to you. You know, it'll be the cheapest possible shipping, but I'll get it to you unless you really want it and want to like give me a super comment down there. And then, yeah, maybe that will help pay for the shipping. However you want to do it. All right, so got that guy out of the way. So we know that's going to need to be replaced. The big question, the next one, is this guy right here, the floppy drive. So we know that these floppy drives, they get gummed up real easy, so at the very least, this is going to need to be re-lubed, and hopefully it doesn't require any additional repair, because that could get a little more expensive with replacement parts for it. So first, I got a couple screws on the bottom, holding that in place, so we're going to get these guys out of here. So let's get all these out. All right, and that is nice and free. And we will pull it right out. And here it is. Ooh, that is a dusty, dirty boy. So he's going to get a little spa treatment now. Let's see what we're cooking with back here. So first we're going to need to take it out of this little tray. These little tiny brass screws. And they've got a little flat washer and a lock washer all together. Okay, there we go. Now the tray is out. All right, now here's the business end. You see the heads. The heads are locked into place. Yeah, this is really gummed up pretty good. First, let's get some of the big dust bunnies off here, because they're kind of grossing me out. And now, of course, our friend Adrian Black of Adrian's Digital Basement, he, like 5 years ago, did a complete video on this very hard drive, the complete teardown and re-lubrication of everything, including even repairing the eject motor, the Achilles heel of these old Macintosh hard drives. And we're going to hope and pray that this guy is not in as bad shape as that one that he had. So we're going to sort of show an abbreviated version of his teardown, but I'm going to link his video in there so you can see a nice detailed breakdown of how to clean these bad boys out. Then place this guy in here. There we go. Okay. Just need to get that snapped back into the right position here. Okay. Let's see what happens when we get it put back together. All right. Get those lock washers to compress nicely, because we do not want this vibrating all over the place here. We want this to stay nice and stable so our poor little floppies don't get all flopped around too much. Guy back down here again. Now this is going to have to get mounted back again to these holes. So it pretty much lies right on the front panel. That makes it easy. Oh, just notice here we got that nice little Sony sticker here on the bottom of the floppy drive. Sony's definitely still around, but they don't make floppy drives anymore. Don't think anybody makes floppy drives anymore, right? Floppy drive, he gets his power and everything right here from this cable. He doesn't get any more connection to the power supply. It's all coming through the motherboard. So speaking of, let's do a little quick cleanup of the motherboard before we pop her back in. Right. So we know there's not really any danger necessarily of the Varta battery that's in there, but we also know it's not doing anything for us. So maybe at some point we'll come up with a replacement. I know some folks have used a low profile like CR2032 lithium battery replacement, but I don't really care so much about the date time. If I'm stuck in 1987 forever, I don't think I'm going to get a lot of complaints. So we're going to snip. There's the other end. Okay. Now this guy will be disposed of properly. And we'll clean up these. So that's good enough. We'll give this a good spray down. Real nasty, like cobweb type stuff happening there. So let's get in there with a Q-tip. All right, we'll get all that out of there. You notice there's no active cooling on the CPU. Didn't need them back then. The 68000 ran plenty cool. Spray a little air inside them. Good and spritzed now. We're gonna replace this LED cable. Still fits on there nice. Pushed into place. Okay. Now that's happy. Okay. Let's get that bit of nastiness off there. All right. Now let's get some of this gook out of the fan. All right, we're gonna need to attack that fan with a little Q-tip action. Ugh, look at that. That's just so gross. We've got motherboard back in place. Let's go ahead and put the power cable back in and the floppy cable back in. All right. Okay. Everybody seems real happy there. Of course, like I said, we're going to leave the hard drive, the Molex cable out. And now we're going to try powering this up again and seeing if our eject motor is happy enough to eject a floppy for us. That's going to be important to know. And we're going to use this old Dell to see if that happens. I'll not be using one of the useful discs that I have coming in the mail for this particular test. All right, so I'm not going to bother putting everything back on. But I get that, and hook up the mouse and keyboard just in case. Power this puppy on again. There's that power supply humming on. All right. So yeah, we got our mouse. And now he's saying, hey, I want a floppy. Where's my floppy? I said, I got your floppy right here, pal. All right, let's see what happens. He doesn't like that. Are you going to give it back? I don't think our eject motor is super happy. All right, let's shut her down. So I'm going to find something that's going to be small enough to get in that hole, and we'll be able to pop that guy right out. And I think we're going to have to take a closer look at that eject motor. Had to go in yet one more time, a third time, to get in there and make sure that the floppy drive was reassembled correctly. Found a couple of those little discs were not put in correctly. Somehow they got put in below the thing they were supposed to be clamping down. I don't know. I'm going to blame some outsourced talent for doing that. It certainly couldn't have been me making that kind of mistake. So let's turn it on one more time. And now we're going to see if that motor will be able to eject this time. I had to go back into that gearbox and realign the gears one more time too while I was in there. Say, give me a floppy. Okay, here's a floppy. Oh, it's definitely doing something there. Okay, it's definitely saying, don't like it, bad floppy. All right, is it trying to eject? No. Okay. And it keeps trying. Now, all right, so I don't know if it was trying to eject or if it was trying to read. It was trying to do something, but I knew it wasn't going to be successful. All right, but at least this comes out okay. So, all right, we'll see what happens when we put the real floppies in there. So I'm going to close this case back up, and we got to wait on our friends at eBay to get those discs to us. So obviously it was able to read the disc and make that determination that it was not a Mac disc and had that black X, but it was not able to automatically delete or automatically eject the disc. I don't know if it was actually trying to, or if it just kept trying to read over and over again. I don't know what quite that sound was, but at least for now we'll be be having to use the manual eject probably, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes once we get a real disc in there. Tried to order the system discs to install via Floppy, and they never came. They never got shipped. So I don't know what happened there, but I don't really need the floppy to make things happen because I now have this. It's the SCSI2SD, and I've already mounted it in here. Not a terribly interesting mounting process, but you see the SCSI cable. It's the same one that came with the computer. It's just goes here into the 50-pin SCSI port, and our Molex power cable goes in there, and then over here we can put in a micro SD card, and I'm going to go ahead and pop that in. So with this high-tech clipping system that I've devised, it will hold this here, and I'll have this empty space in the back to pop that in there. And that little this little channel right here, that is what comes out of this guy right here. So I can pop this sucker right out, and I'll leave this open, and I'll have easy access to that card if I want to mount a different drive on there. So let's see, to get that out here, we got some little clips here on the inside. So I'll just push those in, and there it goes. All right, so now should be able to have that easily exposed back there, and I'll be able to just pop cards in and out and be able to load software on the card. One of the nice things about using an image like this is that I can go ahead and mount that image inside a emulator, and then be able to use floppy images on the computer, on the modern computer, to be able to load up software on there. But for right now, I've got just a real basic version of System 6 on there. So let's get that powered up. All right, so I've already got here the keyboard and mouse connected. They're daisy chained together here in this one port. I've got my SD card safely mounted in there, and I just need to plug in the power. And a little flip around. All right, now, unfortunately, what I can't do with the SCSI2 SD that I bought, it's not one of the official ones. It comes from our friends in China, but I believe some of the other ones can actually take the little LED connector on here. I'm sure there's a way to do it. There is an onboard LED on the SCSI2SD that I got, but yeah, it's not going to be able to show up here on our little hard drive activity light. But maybe at some point I'll figure out how to do that. But for now, let's flip her on. There's that power supply still humming. Thank God this is one with the fan. So here we go. Happy Mac! Welcome to Macintosh. Oh no. All right. All right, there we go. Looks like we was slightly gauzed there for a minute, but now we're okay. So there we go. There is our Mac. So let me try to first bring up the control panel, and let's increase our mouse tracking here, because it is very slow. All right, much faster now. All right, so there's not really a whole lot on here. We can look in here. We've got some like control menu, control panel type items, but yeah, color, that's not going to help us a whole lot. But yeah, pretty much everything on here is just an empty version of the actual software. So I need to go and backfill a lot of this stuff, but at least as a proof of concept, I've got this working. I need to find something to actually test the keyboard with. Maybe the calculator? Well, there's our calculator. So now, of course, with this, I have the extended keyboard, so I should be able to, oh, look at that. So that's working. 1 + 8 = 9. Look at that. If I hit clear, oh no, it even clears. So it actually lets you use the numpad as a calculator. And look, Apple is nice enough to have everything totally match the numpad there. So really very nice. So at least I have a working calculator. All right, so let's see. Let's test this keyboard out here. All right. Back tick's good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. All right. Every key on the keyboard works perfectly. So yeah, we're going to have ourselves a real nice system here once we get populated with some actual software. So let's see what we can find to install on here, and we're going to have some fun. So the image that was running there on the Mac was sort of a real stripped down version of the Mac System 6, and specifically 608. And I got it from here. This is Steve's blog, savagetailor.com. He's got a real treasure trove here of information on how to use the Basilisk emulator to be able to stage these hard drive images to use for SCSI2SD, and just all other means of trying to resurrect these old Macs. And so that's what I did, is followed his instructions and used his images to sort of get this just bootstrapped, literally and figuratively. So a little quick look at what I got from him. I have 2 different bare bones disk images. One is for System 755. Now that does not successfully run on the Mac SE. I tried running that, but it just didn't have enough RAM. I only have 1 meg of RAM, and it just said, I'm sorry, I don't have enough RAM to run that. And so I've been running the 608, but neither of them have the complete software. What does have the complete software is this CD image right here from 1999. Apple had this legacy software recovery CD that you could go back really far and get all your system software up to date just with this one CD. Now, because it's a CD, that means I have to use System 7 to load it. So I'm able to start up Basilisk here and create this staged version of a Mac where it's booting to 755, but it's also mounting this 608 drive, and it's mounting this CD image. So when I start Basilisk, here it is. Here's my 755 desktop, but I've got my 608 image right here. And we'll see here, it's just real basic, just has System 608 and really not even a fully featured version of that. And what I can do is use this CD. So I can say, yeah, I want Mac OS. I want System 608. I am using a version that has the 800K floppies, like the Mac SE. And then I can run this netinstall.scr. And yeah, so it's, instead of having to get the floppies, my attempts to get floppies off eBay didn't work. And plus, I've now discovered that floppy drive just really doesn't work. I wasn't able to reformat the floppy that I had, and the eject mechanism is still broken on that. So I'm kind of giving up on the floppy drive for now. But anyway, here I can get around that by saying switch disk here a few times, and there we go. Now I'm at that 608 hard drive image that's mounted, and I can say, yes, go ahead and install the full deal of System 608. And there we go. Now we have the benefit of a modern computer having that CD image on an SSD. So all that file time, whether it was from a hard drive of the vintage SCSI Persuasion or a SCSI CD-ROM drive, it's pretty good. a lot faster, that you don't have that bottleneck of trying to get the data. So yeah, that's it. That's I've got the full operating system installed on that image now, and I could go ahead and install other things on there. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to shut this guy down again and start him back up. But now, instead of loading this recovery disk, I'll remove that. Then I'll want to try to install some other software that I've found. For instance, here's a floppy disk that has an old version of Centipede on there. Here's if I have two floppy disks in here. I've got one with Centipede. I've got one with Quick Basic. So I'll start that up. Now with Centipede, this is just a real basic file right here. Now it doesn't work too good in the emulator here because it's not really compatible with System 7. But what I can do is just simply drag and drop that into the image, and now it's installed in that 608 image that I'm going to flash to the SD card. So that's it. Centipede installed. And we'll see how that looks on the actual hardware. Now for Quick Basic, this is another just sort of copy and place type thing. So here I'll create an actual folder, and I'll say QBasic. And then I just copy the file. So it's pretty much just the application, and then it has these sample applications on here. So let's get that and over here into the QBasic directory. So now it's copied into that hard drive image, and that'll be ready to run. Now this does actually run pretty well. So here, if I run Quick Basic, and I could open one of these are basically identical programs. This is a really primitive type in to prompts, and it's kind of thing that I made when I was 12. So it's not terribly interesting, but what I will be able to do is get the a Mandelbrot plot going in there. So I did create a version that runs on QBasic, and I've already got it copied onto the SD card on there. And so if we look at here, now this is QB64. This is Quick Basic for Linux. And this is basically the program. I had to modify it slightly to make it work with the Mac version of Quick Basic. It doesn't like this as string as type. I had to define this as pixels $, and for the dim array, but otherwise it works. And so when I run it here, of course, it's instantaneous. Now it's certainly not instantaneous on a Mac, and we're going to see how that works once we get that booted up. So now we've here on this image, we have two very simple, just sort of copy and drop versions of installations, but we can also do like the OS, a more sophisticated installation. And here I have this directory here, this Mac emu directory, where it has I have Microsoft Word all set up in a subdirectory. So here is the original Stuffit file, and so I can use this emulator to unpack a Stuffit file and create a if that Stuffit has images in it, then I can then get those images right off of here. So let's load down here to the Word 51A directory that Stuffit created, and now I've got all these files. So they're still on the host file system here, but I can go ahead and, like, here's the install disk, and there it is. There's the Word installer, and I can mount all these other floppy disks too. So I gotta sort of pre-mount all the different floppy disks that are on here. And then I can run the installer. But again, I got to do a custom build. And I got to switch to the disk here and then say, I can't do system, I can't do complete install, but I can say, here, give me the program, give me the README, and let me have help and glossaries and command help, and get the spelling checker, get all that stuff. I'll get the toolbar, get the graph, here, equation editor, yeah, and so forth. That's basically it. And then I can say, all right, where do I want to put it on the on this guy? So I'll create a new directory here on the hard drive image, and I'll call it Word 5, and then I can just install it right there. And again, it's happening very quickly. And here's my default font. But look at all these beautiful fonts. If I wanted to use Geneva or Helvetica, but no, we'll stick with Times. This is old school Word. We're going to use Times. But there it is. So now I have Word installed. And of course, the nice thing about these old Macs is that if you have another mounted hard drive, you can basically just run applications that are installed on there. And so there it is, Microsoft Word. Now it's, of course, in living color here in this emulated System 7. And yeah, I say, hey, do. Now here it says the disk must be installed. No, it doesn't really need to be installed. You just get the warning about not pirating this 30-some-year-old version of Word. And there it is. There's Microsoft Word 5. And I've got this running on the real Mac too. So all set to do all sorts of fun word processing now on there. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at all this stuff running on the real Mac. All right, so we got the Mac back up and ready, loaded up with all that software. Now, before we get any further, let's see if we can clean this up just a bit more, so we're not looking at such a dirty Mac for all this stuff. So let's see here, with a little alcohol. Yeah, see that pitting sort of wants to stay there. That's sad that most of the damage on this machine is from neglect. It's not from use. Like I said, I don't think this was used a whole lot, but it had a hard drive. Yeah, we're getting a little something off there. It had a hard drive that was no good, floppy drive that's no good, and they're just kind of seized up. I think the gears in the eject mechanism are just not up to the task of what they need to do, and maybe the motor is a little upset, but yeah, not getting a heck of a lot off there. At some point I'll really go to town on this, try to make it look nicer. I don't want to have to completely take this this front piece off and go through that whole rigmarole with it, but for right now it's basically working okay. So let's flip her on. There we go. Welcome to Macintosh. Let me keep having to speed up the mouse on here. Not sure why the mouse keeps coming up slow, but all right, now I got a fast mouse. At some point, if somebody knows how to make that setting stick, please drop a comment in there, because I can't figure that out. All right, so here's the stuff that I put in there. I got Centipede, so let's take a look at Centipede. So here's another person. If you know if this person still exists or not, I would love to see this source code, and I will gladly send $25 to Ricardo Batista in Coronado, California. So if that's a guy that still exists and he still has that source code, oh, I'll send him $25 in a heartbeat. Now it's a real basic version here. This is obviously not made. It's just made by Ricardo. It's not made by Atari or anybody like that. So yeah, so we get a bit of flicker there on there, but you know the response to the mouse is real good, but the hitbox on your little player there is a little weird, a little unpredictable. And yeah, it's kind of slow because these I don't know what kind of graphics library he was using. Yeah, you see, that's he calls that a kill for the spider. All right, so yeah, you get the idea. I'm gonna need to go on a kamikaze mission here. Let's get there we go. All right. And that was it. That was Centipede. And so, again, word 5. So, here, I'll actually put my name in there. Now it says, please solid start. Now I don't have the image of that disk to mount, but I don't really need it. Let's see, you can continue to use Microsoft Word, but you should be aware this computer program is protected by copyright law. It totally is. Back in 1992, and so there we go. Now, of course, this is on System 6 in black and white, but it's still fully featured, and you can do all the things that you could ever hope to do with Word. I want it in Chicago, 12. Oh, there we go. I say I want Helvetica 24. So another thing you'll of course notice with a version that's this old of Microsoft Word, that there are no vector-based fonts in here. These are all pixel-based fonts in terms of what you're going to see on the screen. So yeah, they don't fully scale the way like a TrueType font would today. So anyway, there's Word. So if I really want to be able to do some writing without any distraction, this would work pretty well. I'll tell you that right now. So let me go ahead and save this guy. And it doesn't let me create a directory right here. Wow. All right. So I'll just put it right in there, and I'll call it hello. I don't need to get any fancier than that. And there's our document, hello. And if I quit Word, it'll get back into the Finder here. And there's my Microsoft Word document, hello. All right. And now for QBasic. So now when you open a basic file, it just immediately goes ahead and runs it. So here it is. It's running this version where we have 2 characters for each pixel, because the characters, at least on a DOS-like environment like the QB64 on Linux, it's going to have characters that are twice as tall as they are wide. So you use the 2 characters to have square pixels. Now, yeah, you can see it's not super fast. This is using QBasic, so it's definitely not optimized for the 68,000 processor. That's definitely something I want to do at some point, is do some 68,000 assembly language, which was the very first assembly language I ever learned back in college. So that's it. Now it's finally done. So yeah, you'll notice that that text was a bit off here. So let me again here show the list. So yeah, I had to change that dim statement and use a $sign for a string dim. No biggie, but the rest of the code is still the same. But you'll notice what works perfectly great in a text-based interface like DOS or basic command prompt console interface that QB64 gives you on Linux. You do locate on there. The characters are all fixed width, but a Mac wanting to Mac, this does not use a fixed width font, and so locate is just sort of approximate in terms of where it expects these characters to be. So that's why when we do run it, you can see the kerning is way off. Like everything's like overwriting each other, and yeah, so it doesn't look good. But we could at least, we know that it's doing all the math that it needs to do, and even though we don't get a nice plot at the end because it also scrolls up off the page. But yeah, all right, let's get this rolling here. We'll have to skip ahead. All right, yeah, and you see it just kind of edges its way down, and then stuff is just really getting cut off and going off the screen because, yeah, it doesn't know how to deal with locate after you've scrolled off past. But then, yeah, once the listing comes back, that's how you know it's really done. So, yeah, it's not the best. So what I've actually started working on right here on the Mac, because again, this is a different version of QBasic than the one for DOS or for QB64. So I'm going to have to do this graphically. I can't depend on text. So I started a proof of concept here of creating pixels, big fat 8x8 pixels that are dithered to get different shades. So I've defined those as data, and then I just plot a few of these guys, and the plot is basically taking these 8x8 bitmaps and just placing them on the specified coordinates. So I've got a few examples of that right now, and we'll run that. Now, this does not go quickly. As you'll notice, each of these pixels takes an appreciable amount of time, and it would appear that the amount of time that it takes to draw one of these pixels is actually longer than it takes to calculate one of those pixels using the previous QBasic program that I wrote. So this is going to definitely at least double the time that it takes to run that benchmark. And from what we've seen in terms of how fast things run in BASIC, running QBasic here on this old Mac, even though it's higher clock rate and more RAM, and obviously a much more useful computer by modern standards, it's not going to be any faster crunching numbers with this with QBasic and this pokey old 68,000 without any native floating point support. But anyway, that's it. That's where we're at. So I'm gonna keep plugging away, and I'm gonna do another video of going back to that 16-bit battle royale and get a graphical plot to work on here that will still be that same spectrum where it's 31 by 21 or whatever, and it's going to be made up of these 8 by 8 dithered pixels. And yeah, we're going to have, you know, something looking pretty decent at the end. It's not going to go way off the rails like the text-based one, and it will give us some idea of what it takes to do graphics using BASIC on the Mac. Now, eventually we'll get into how to create an actual graphical Mac application using assembly language and or C++ or C. Back then, by 1987, when this guy was made, people were already starting to try to use C++ to write applications for Macs to, you know, varying levels of success. So we'll see how that goes, and that'll be a fun adventure with this guy. Is creating applications, again, using some modern tools, trying to do cross development as much as possible, so I have access to GitHub and everything, and be able to get a workable process in place to be able to get these artifacts for these programs transferred onto this specially formatted SD card. And it's going to be some combination of using the emulator and pulling images off the flash card, mounting them in the emulator, and then populating them in there, and then writing it back. It's going to be a bit of a rigmarole, but eventually we'll get something figured out where it'll be hopefully fairly low friction. I know some of those development tools can run on here. I would hesitate to run anything too sophisticated on here, because this is still, you know, not a terribly capable computer. And as you can see, you don't get a lot of rows of text on here. So these old Macs were really not made for coders, right? You didn't want to necessarily do software development on this. If you were doing 68,000 development, you'd probably do it on a Sun workstation. That would have been great. But this, this is ultimately was a much less expensive machine, something that somebody could actually afford to have in their home. Not that you could be like average income and afford it. This was still a luxury item at the time, but it was certainly a lot more accessible than a Sun, which you had to be a big corporation or university to really be able to afford. But anyway, that's it. That's all we're going to do for this, and we'll come back to doing some of this fun software development on this and some other platforms. I've got 2 new platforms coming in that are that we'll be seeing in future videos. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure you do that right now. Click that bell to be notified, so when I see these new gizmos come across the retro desk, you'll be there waiting to watch them with me. All right, take care, and bye-bye.